Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are here for another one of your questions about work. And this is about one of these fields that is just evolving so fast that the state of the art today is not what it was, just yesterday. And so I'm Roy. If you're here for the first time, I'm a startup investor in the future of work. I'm here with Patrice, Patrice Poltzer was a TV news producer at the Today Show. Did I get that right?
That was my last media job. Yep.
Yeah, and Bloomberg, among other places.
Yes.
And now runs an agency where she works with founders and brands on their video storytelling. So the question today is, I have a product that I'm making or a service that I offer, a team that's doing something within a company, and I know video is important. Like I get it, but how do I use video? How should I think about it?
Okay, so it's a really good question. And we all know that you need video in your marketing strategy at some level, right? But what I see a lot in my line of work, especially I'm going to pick on the product-based entrepreneurs and product-based businesses here, is a lot of times the product people, they are so focused that, their story is their product. They don't want to have anything to do with the story aspect of their company because they just want to keep it focused on the product. But I'm here to tell you that in this crowded world where, guess what, you're probably not the only person doing what you do, the one way to really differentiate yourself is to insert your stories, to insert the why, the mission, the culture. And I don't see a lot of product people doing that. But the ones that do it, and they do it on video and they connect, I mean, you just see them sort of.
Like, what are examples when it works really well?
What'd you say? Sorry?
What's an example of where it works really well?
So, one of my favorite examples is I just discovered them actually over the pandemic, but city bonfires. It is this product that honestly, they're not the first people to make this. They're essentially, it's like a candle in a tin, right? But what these two dads did that was genius is they completely centered their product story around themselves as founders. So they both lost their jobs. They were neighbors. They lived across the street. They started tinkering in their garage. So all of a sudden they started building this buzz around themselves, but it was also to focus on their product.
I love that.
All their video content on their social media, their Instagram, they've been on every single major television morning program, business morning program.
And it's basically like some sterno in a can.
Yeah, but
that's
their
amazing.
Story. But you know what? People, they took relatable, universal topics like being laid off, not knowing what you're going to do, hitting rock bottom, having a friend, trying to figure out what am I doing with my life. I have kids, I have a family, and they wrote that in and they tied it to their product. And they just went gangbusters.
I love that. I mean, that idea of taking these themes and combining them in the story of your own life, I think is so powerful. We often see founders, a lot of founders of tech companies have kind of cottoned on to this trick, right? It's like, come out from behind the curtain. I think you called it earlier when we were talking your Wizard of Oz moment, but then they're coming out from the curtain is just boring. It's like, well, we were people who had this problem and we figured we should fix it. It's like, all right, waiting for the detail, waiting for the specifics. And so what you're describing is something where they talked about being in struggle. They talked about their friendship, and just even two dads who made this is a memorable detail.
Absolutely. And one of the key things I always tell people is, when you're thinking of your own story, sometimes you think you need this epic story, right? For it to really relate, unless you were living in a car homeless and then all of a sudden you figured it out, That's a story. But anything less than that, that's not worth telling. But what we see a lot in our business is that, people just want to feel like they can relate to you, right? And what are some of those every human universal experiences? Now, everyone has that. So if you think about even fairy tales, right? There's a reason that every fairy tale starts out once upon a time and there's a villain and there's a character. And so if you can almost look outside of yourself and look at how you started your business and your story leading up to what you do, almost as if you were telling a fairy tale to a child, how would you do that in a creative way? I mean, that type of thinking can switch it on for you, and all of a sudden it's I am the star of my own fairy tale.
Yeah, what they tell people if they're preparing for the moth is to make it cinematic, is to imagine the story in a way where you're telling it as if you're looking at it. And I see you've got Humans of New York, I think, right behind you on your coffee table.
Oh my God, yeah, I do. I mean,
what a powerful example of being able to take, your story does not need to be that you were one in a million. The story just needs to be yours.
It needs to be yours. And also it just needs to be relatable to not even most people, even either your audience that you're trying to appeal to. But I always tell people you don't need an epic story to have a compelling story.
I love that. I mean, that definitely gives hope for lots of folks who otherwise I think will be sitting there thinking to themselves, how do I and the hard thing I've often found for people about telling their own story is starting a company is personal enough. I mean, you started an agency, and then all of a sudden it's like, now I'd like you to make it more personal by bearing your soul about your story. It's like, oh, that's scary. But I think the idea of making it relatable and attaching to universal themes is something that absolutely anybody can do. Anything else, Patrice, before we wrap?
Yeah, no, but just really quick tip too is most people, they start with the what instead of the why. So when people are like, what's your story? They start, I am a small business owner. I am a jewelry owner. I make this product. I make this software. I am a tech engineer. But that is not what's interesting to most people. So you want to actually go all in with the what. So figure out, what that reason is, why you started that, or maybe it was when you hit rock bottom, and try starting out that story with, when I hit rock bottom and realized that I needed to figure out what I should do with my life, I decided to do this. Now, all of a sudden you have someone's attention and they're going to want to see what the next line of your story is. And then you can back into your product or your company that way.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, thank you. That is incredible perspective for people to have and feel like, they should check out your courses and maybe end up working with you. And thank you for that, Patrice. And for everybody out there, we get the questions from you. So feel free to fire away on any comment on any of this, and to be continued.